Imagine for a second that you walk into a room and everyone there already knows exactly where you stand. They don't have to guess what you'll put up with. They don't have to test you, and they don't have to push the line to see how far they can go. Why? Because you set the line before anyone ever gets the chance. That's the power of setting boundaries, and it's the very first step to making sure no one ever disrespects you again. Boundaries are not walls. They're not about shutting people out, and they're not about being difficult or controlling. Boundaries are simply the lines that tell people how to be in relationship with you, whether that's friendship, work, family, or even a stranger you just met. When you don't set them, people will assume. And when people assume, they'll often assume wrong. They'll project what they think you'll allow, and many times that projection works in their favor, not yours. Think about the last time someone crossed a line with you. Maybe they talked down to you. Maybe they invaded your space. Maybe they asked too much of your time. In that moment, you probably felt it. You felt that little sting of resentment, the discomfort in your chest, the thought running through your mind. I don't like this. That feeling is your inner alarm going off, telling you a boundary has been crossed. The mistake most people make is ignoring that alarm. They shrug it off. They say, it's not worth the fight, or maybe I'm overreacting. But here's the truth. Every time you ignore that alarm, you're silently teaching the other person that what they did was okay. You're not just letting it slide. You're training them, and then it snowballs. Small disrespects turn into bigger ones. Casual slights turn into outright disregard. And before you know it, you're frustrated not just with them, but with yourself for letting it get this far. That's why setting boundaries isn't optional if you want to be respected. It's essential. It's not about being rude. It's about being clear. Because people cannot honor boundaries they don't know exist. The way you set a boundary matters just as much as the boundary itself. If you set it with anger, it sounds like an attack. If you set it with fear, it sounds like you're not sure you mean it. But if you set it calmly, clearly, and directly, it lands differently. Instead of creating defensiveness, it creates understanding. A simple phrase like, I don't allow people to speak to me that way, or I'm not available after this time, or that's not something I'm comfortable with, is enough. Notice there's no apology in those statements, no long explanation, no nervous laugh at the end. Just clear, just firm, just respectful. And here's where most people hesitate. They think setting a boundary will make them look mean or unlikable. But the truth is, boundaries don't push the right people away. They push the wrong people away. The ones who truly respect you will actually respect you more when you set them. They'll know where they stand, they'll know how to interact with you, and they'll know you respect yourself enough to ask for the same from them. The ones who get angry when you set a boundary, those are the ones who were benefiting from you not having one in the first place. There's also a deeper benefit to setting boundaries. You stop living in reaction mode. Instead of constantly putting out fires, constantly correcting people after the fact, you prevent the fire from ever starting. You give yourself peace, clarity, and control. It takes the mental load off because you no longer have to wonder, should I say something? Should I let it go? You already know the answer. And here's the key. Boundaries only work if you keep them. If you say you don't tolerate something and then let it slide the next time, your words lose power. The strength of a boundary comes from consistency. Think of it like training a dog. If sometimes they're allowed on the couch and sometimes they're not, they'll always test it. But if the rule is always the rule, they don't waste their time trying. People are no different. Once you consistently enforce your boundary, they stop testing it. The best part, once you get comfortable setting boundaries in one area of your life, it bleeds into all the others. You set them at work. You set them in your relationships. You even set them with yourself, what time you wake up, what habits you allow, what standards you hold. And that's when the real shift happens. Because when you set boundaries with yourself, everyone else falls in line. They see that you take yourself seriously, and it makes it impossible for them not to do the same. So, if you're tired of being disrespected, if you're tired of people crossing lines, if you're tired of swallowing that frustration, the very first step is simple. Stop waiting for people to figure it out. Stop assuming they should just know. Tell them. Show them. Draw the line calmly and clearly and hold it. Because the moment you do, you stop being an easy target. You stop being someone people can dismiss. You become someone people know, without a doubt, they have to respect. That's the power of boundaries. Confidence isn't something you announce. It's something you carry. The truth is, most people decide whether to respect you long before you ever open your mouth. They read it in how you walk into a room, how you sit at a table, how you look at them when they're speaking. Respect starts with presence, and presence starts with confidence. Now, when I say confidence, I don't mean arrogance. Arrogance is loud, it's forced, it's trying to prove something. Real confidence is quiet, it's steady. It's the kind of energy that says, I belong here, I don't have to convince you of it, and I don't need your approval to stand tall. That's the kind of confidence that makes people think twice before they disrespect you. You've probably met someone like that before. They weren't necessarily the biggest or the loudest person in the room, but there was just something about the way they carried themselves that made you pay attention. Maybe it was the way they held eye contact without flinching. Maybe it was the way they spoke, calm, measured, no rush to fill the silence. Maybe it was just the way they stood, shoulders back, head up, like they were grounded in who they were. That's the image that lingers. That's the unspoken signal that says, I'm not someone you walk over. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to be born with that. You can train it. You can practice it. Body language is learned. Voice control is learned. Presence is learned. You build it the same way you build a muscle, through repetition, through awareness, through small, consistent changes that add up. Start with the basics. When you enter a room, don't rush in. Pause for a second at the doorway. Take in the space. Breathe, then walk in like you own your steps, not like you're trying to get out of everyone's way. When you speak, slow down. People who feel insecure rush their words like they're afraid they're taking up too much time. Confident people don't race. They let their words land. And when you listen, really listen, give people your eyes, your full attention. The irony is, the more respect you give in that moment, the more respect you command in return. Another piece of confidence comes from how you handle silence. Most people are uncomfortable with it. They fill it with nervous laughter, filler words, explanations. But silence used well is powerful. If someone challenges you and you just pause, look at them, and let that silence hang for a moment before you respond, you've already shifted the power in the room. That pause says, I'm not rattled. I'm in control. But here's the thing, confidence on the outside doesn't last if it's not backed up on the inside. You can square your shoulders all day, but if deep down you're constantly doubting yourself, people will feel it. Confidence is reinforced by competence. By knowing you're prepared, by knowing you've done the work. When you keep promises to yourself, whether that's showing up on time, finishing what you said you'd finish, or following through on your own goals, You start to build an inner trust. That inner trust shows up in how you carry yourself because you're not faking it anymore. You actually believe in yourself. Now let's talk about what happens when you don't carry yourself with confidence. People notice. They notice when your eyes dart around, when your shoulders slump, when your voice trails off. They notice when you shrink instead of stand. And unfortunately, the people who look for weakness will exploit that. They'll interrupt you. They'll talk over you. They'll dismiss your ideas, not because you don't have value, but because you gave them the signal that you don't believe in your own value. And that's why carrying yourself with confidence isn't optional. It's protective. It's a shield. It's a way of saying, without words, I know who I am and you will too, because people mirror what they see. If you show up like you respect yourself, they'll follow your lead. If you show up like you doubt yourself, they'll treat you the same way. This doesn't mean you won't ever feel nervous. Everyone feels nervous. Everyone doubts themselves sometimes. The difference is whether you let those nerves control how you present yourself. Confidence isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to not hand fear the microphone. It's saying, yes, I'm nervous, but I'm still here. I still belong. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is to stop asking, what will they think of me? And start asking, what do I think of myself? Because at the end of the day, you are the one who sets the tone. You are the one who teaches people how to treat you. And the fastest way to shift how the world sees you is to shift how you see yourself. So carry yourself like someone worth respecting, because you are. Respect starts long before anyone else ever gets involved. It starts with you. The way you speak to yourself, the way you carry yourself when no one is watching, the standards you hold yourself to every single day, those are the things that determine whether people take you seriously. Because here's the truth, if you don't respect yourself first, no one else is going to do it for you. Think about it. If you constantly put yourself down, if you let yourself slide on promises, if you treat yourself like an afterthought, what message are you sending? You're telling the world, this is the standard. This is what I accept. And people will always follow the standard you set for yourself. They'll only rise as high as you rise for you. Self-respect isn't about ego. It's not about walking around thinking you're better than everyone else. It's about valuing your own time, your own energy, your own worth enough to protect it. That means not letting people walk over you, yes, but it also means not walking over yourself. Too many times people say they'll do something, wake up early, hit the gym, finish the project, make the call, and then they don't. They excuse it. They brush it off. And little by little, they chip away at their own self-respect. Because deep down, every time you break a promise to yourself, you stop trusting yourself. And when you don't trust yourself, how can you expect anyone else to trust you? That's where resentment comes in. That's where insecurity grows. You feel small, you feel unsteady, you feel like you don't have the right to demand respect from others because you haven't been giving it to yourself. But when you start flipping that, when you say, if I tell myself I'm going to do something, I do it, everything changes. You build this quiet confidence, this steady strength. It shows up in how you walk, how you talk, how you interact with people. You don't even have to say, I respect myself. People just see it. They see it in the way you take care of your appearance, in the way you protect your time, in the way you hold yourself accountable. And that energy makes it very hard for anyone to disrespect you. There's another side to self-respect too, and that's how you allow people to treat you. When someone speaks to you in a way that doesn't line up with your value, you have a choice. You can brush it off and hope it doesn't happen again, or you can stand on the respect you already give yourself and say, that doesn't work for me. The difference is whether you believe you're worth defending. People who don't respect themselves let those moments slide because they're afraid of conflict or because they think they don't deserve better. People who respect themselves know better. They know that letting it slide isn't kindness, it's neglect of themselves. And let me say this, respecting yourself doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean you never make mistakes or you never doubt yourself. It means you recognize when you've slipped and you hold yourself accountable without beating yourself down. You correct it. You get back up. You keep your own dignity intact even in failure. Because someone who respects themselves doesn't crumble when they fall. They learn, they adjust, and they stand back up stronger. The hardest part is that self-respect is built in private. No one is applauding you for getting up early when you don't want to. No one is clapping for you when you close the fridge door instead of eating junk you promised yourself you wouldn't. No one is cheering when you finish that task instead of scrolling on your phone. But all those small private decisions stack up. They stack into trust. They stack into discipline. They stack into the kind of person who can look in the mirror and say, I take myself seriously. And when you take yourself seriously, people have no choice but to do the same. So much of disrespect comes from people sensing weakness, sensing that you don't fully believe in yourself. The way to shut that down isn't to bark louder or fight harder. It's to live in such a way that your self-respect is obvious. To walk in such a way that people can't even imagine talking down to you. To speak in such a way that people know, this person values themselves, so I'd better value them too. That's the foundation. That's where all the other steps come from. Boundaries don't work if you don't respect yourself. Confidence looks fake if you don't respect yourself. Consequences don't hold weight if you don't respect yourself. Everything starts here with you. Respect yourself first, and the rest will follow. One of the fastest ways to lose respect is to let your emotions run the show. We've all seen it. Someone gets disrespected, and their first reaction is to blow up. They yell, they get defensive, they try to overpower the situation with volume or anger. For a moment, it feels powerful. But here's the truth, anger almost always gives your power away. Because when you lose control, you're no longer leading the interaction, you're reacting to it. And people can sense that immediately. Respect doesn't come from being the loudest in the room. It comes from being the calmest. It comes from holding your ground without raising your voice. It comes from showing people that they can't knock you off center, no matter how much they push. That calm authority is far more intimidating and far more effective than any outburst could ever be. Think about the last time someone talked down to you or dismissed you. You probably felt that surge in your chest, that heat rising up, the urge to snap back. That urge is natural. But if you take the bait, you've already lost. Because now the focus isn't on their disrespect, it's on your reaction. Suddenly you're the one who looks unstable, emotional, maybe even unprofessional. They don't walk away thinking, I was wrong for crossing that line. They walk away thinking, wow, look how easy it was to get under their skin. And you've given them exactly what they wanted. Now picture the opposite. Someone throws shade at you, makes a snide remark, tries to provoke you, and you just look at them, pause, and respond in a calm, steady voice. Don't talk to me like that. No yelling, no sarcasm, no extra words. Just firm, direct, controlled. That's power. Because now the attention is back where it belongs, on their behavior. And they realize you're not someone they can rattle. You're not someone they can toy with. People underestimate how much tone changes everything. The same words, delivered with anger, can sound like a fight. Delivered with calm authority, they sound like truth. And truth is hard to argue with. You don't need to justify it. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to beg for it. The calmer you are, the stronger it lands. Silence is part of this too. Silence is uncomfortable for a lot of people, which is why it's powerful when you use it intentionally. Instead of snapping back, sometimes the best response is a pause. Let the silence hang. Let them sit in it. Then when you do speak, your words carry weight. It's not about filling space. It's about controlling space. And control earns respect. This doesn't mean you have to stuff down your emotions or pretend you don't feel them. It means you give yourself that moment of choice before you act. That 1 second of breathing, of remembering that how you respond will set the tone for how people treat you next time. That second is where your power lies, because in that second, you decide, do I want to hand them control by exploding, or do I want to keep control by responding with authority? People test you not just to see if you'll fight back, but to see if you'll lose control. The moment they realize they can't make you react emotionally, the game changes. They stop seeing you as someone they can manipulate. They start seeing you as someone they have to respect. And here's the real beauty of it. When you practice this, it doesn't just protect you from disrespect. It actually changes how you feel about yourself. You start to trust yourself more because you know you won't fly off the handle. You start to walk into situations calmer, steadier, knowing you can handle whatever comes your way. That inner peace shows up on the outside, and it makes people think twice before crossing you. It's also contagious. People mirror what they're given. If you escalate, they escalate. If you stay calm, they're forced to match your energy or risk looking foolish. You don't just control yourself. You control the tone of the whole interaction. That's leadership. That's strength. The challenge is that it takes practice. You won't nail it every time. You'll slip. You'll react too quickly. You'll regret something you said. But if you keep practicing, if you keep choosing calm over chaos more often than not, you'll start to notice people treating you differently. They'll interrupt you less. They'll think twice before making that comment. They'll speak with more care, not because you demanded it with force, but because you earned it with control. And that's what separates people who are respected from people who are not. The respected ones don't let their emotions dictate the moment. They dictate the moment. They lead with calm, steady authority, and people follow that lead. So when someone disrespects you, don't hand them your control. Don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you lose it. Hold your ground, keep your voice steady, and let your calm carry the weight. That's where respect lives. Here's the thing about respect: words mean very little without action. You can say, I won't tolerate that, all day long, but if nothing happens when someone crosses the line, people will stop believing you. And once they stop believing you, you've lost the leverage you need to be respected. That's why enforcing consequences is non-negotiable. Boundaries don't hold unless you're willing to back them up. Most people get stuck here because consequences feel uncomfortable. It feels easier to let it slide, to hope it doesn't happen again, to tell yourself you'll deal with it next time. But every time you do that, you're teaching people that your words are just noise, that your line is actually negotiable, and people will always push as far as you let them. If the consequence never comes, the disrespect never stops. Think about it in simple terms. Imagine a parent who tells their kid, if you don't do your homework, you can't watch TV. The kid ignores the homework, but then still gets to watch TV. What lesson did the kid learn? Not about responsibility. They learned that rules don't matter. Now apply that to adults. If you tell someone at work, "Please don't speak over me," but then you keep letting them dominate the conversation without interruption, what lesson do they learn? That it's safe to keep doing it. Enforcing consequences doesn't mean being harsh or cruel. It means being consistent. It means when you draw a line, you hold it every single time. Sometimes that consequence is as simple as walking away from the conversation. Sometimes it's limiting your time with someone who repeatedly crosses you. Sometimes it's a formal consequence in a workplace setting. The form doesn't matter as much as the follow-through. What matters is that the other person feels the shift. They realize, if I cross that line, something changes. And here's the key. You don't even have to announce most consequences. You just act. If a friend keeps canceling plans at the last minute, you stop making plans with them. If a coworker keeps piling their work on you, you stop picking it up. If someone keeps raising their voice at you, you end the conversation until they can talk with respect. No lecture, no long explanation, just action. That's often more powerful than anything you could say because action can't be argued with. A lot of people fear that enforcing consequences will make them look mean or push people away. But let me flip that for you. The only people who will be upset about your consequences are the ones who were benefiting from your lack of them. The people who truly respect you will actually appreciate your consistency. They'll know where they stand with you. They'll trust that you mean what you say. And that trust builds stronger relationships, not weaker ones. There's also something important about what consequences do for you internally. Every time you follow through, you build credibility with yourself. You prove to yourself that your boundaries matter, that your word has weight. And that changes how you carry yourself. You walk with more confidence. You speak with more authority because deep down you know you'll back yourself up. People feel that. They feel when someone has a backbone. And that backbone doesn't come from threats. It comes from consistency. Now, let's be honest. Sometimes enforcing consequences costs you something. Maybe you lose a friendship that was built on one-sided effort. Maybe you face tension at work for standing up for yourself. Maybe you feel lonely for a while because you stop tolerating behavior you used to accept. But let me ask you this, what's the cost of not enforcing consequences? How much energy do you waste being resentful? How much of your peace do you sacrifice by allowing disrespect to keep happening? The short-term cost of consequences is nothing compared to the long-term cost of letting things slide. You don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to argue. You just have to mean what you say. That's it. That's the entire formula. And the more you practice it, the easier it gets. At first, it might feel awkward. You'll want to explain yourself, justify yourself, soften it. But with time, you'll realize you don't need to. Respect doesn't come from explaining. It comes from doing. So the next time someone crosses your line, don't just warn them. Don't just sigh and hope it changes. Follow through. Take the action. Show them that your boundaries aren't suggestions, they're standards. Because when people see that you always enforce consequences, they stop testing you. They stop pushing. They start respecting. That's the moment when your words finally carry weight. The people you surround yourself with will either reinforce your self-respect or slowly chip away at it. Respect is contagious, but so is disrespect. If you spend enough time around people who belittle you, dismiss you, or take advantage of you, eventually you start to question your own worth. And when you start questioning your own worth, you begin lowering your standards. That's how the cycle continues, until you decide to change who you give your time and energy to. We like to believe we can handle it. We tell ourselves, it doesn't bother me, or that's just how they are. But the truth is, nobody is immune to their environment. The people closest to you shape how you see yourself more than you realize. If your circle is constantly sarcastic, mocking, or careless with your feelings, it's only a matter of time before you either start believing their words or worse, you start treating yourself the same way. On the other hand, when you choose to spend your time with people who value you, everything changes. People who speak to you with respect, who keep their word, who treat you as an equal. Those people don't just make you feel better in the moment, they raise your baseline for what you're willing to accept from anyone. They set the standard higher, and once you've experienced that kind of respect consistently, it becomes very hard to settle for anything less. But here's the challenge. Sometimes the people we need to step back from are the ones we've known the longest. Friends we grew up with, family members who cross lines but brush it off as a joke, colleagues we've gotten used to tolerating because it's easier than confronting them. Cutting or limiting those ties can feel disloyal, even harsh. But let's be honest, what's harsher? Creating some distance or continuing to let people drain your energy, undermine your confidence, and treat you as if your respect doesn't matter. At some point, you have to decide that protecting your peace is more important than preserving unhealthy connections. This doesn't mean you need to make a dramatic announcement or cut everyone off overnight. It means you start being intentional. You start noticing how you feel after spending time with someone. Do you walk away lighter, stronger, more confident? Or do you walk away doubting yourself, feeling smaller, carrying resentment? That answer tells you everything you need to know. Respectful relationships leave you with more. Disrespectful ones leave you with less, and your job is to choose more. It also means you set the tone when new people enter your life. If you've done the work of respecting yourself, carrying yourself with confidence, and enforcing your boundaries, you'll naturally attract people who value those same things. But you still have to pay attention. Don't ignore red flags just because you like someone's company. Don't excuse behavior early on thinking it'll get better later. The way people show up in the beginning usually tells you everything about how they'll treat you in the long run. Believe what they show you. Now, some people might hear this and think, but I can't just choose who's in my environment. What about work? What about family? And that's fair. You can't always choose who's around you, but you can always choose how much access they get to you. Maybe you can't avoid a coworker, but you don't have to engage with them more than necessary. Maybe you can't cut off a family member, but you can limit the depth of the conversations you have. You can decide what parts of yourself you share and what parts you protect. That's still you controlling your environment. It just looks different depending on the situation. The powerful thing about surrounding yourself with respectful people is that it becomes self-reinforcing. When everyone around you treats you with value, it strengthens your own self-respect. And as your self-respect grows, you stop even entertaining disrespect. You recognize it quicker, you shut it down sooner, and eventually it feels so out of place in your life that it barely shows up anymore. That's not luck. That's you curating your environment with intention. At the end of the day, respect isn't just about how you deal with one-off moments of conflict. It's about the culture you build around yourself. If you're surrounded by people who speak life into you, who show up for you, who challenge you without belittling you, you'll naturally rise to that level. But if you surround yourself with people who cut corners, cross lines, and drag you down, you'll eventually sink to theirs. So ask yourself, who gets a seat at your table? who gets the privilege of being close to you, because it is a privilege, your time, your energy, your presence. They are valuable, and the people who get the most of it should be the ones who consistently treat you with the respect you deserve. Surround yourself with people who respect you, and disrespect won't stand a chance.